Legend has is that this board game was created at the behest of King Vladislav Lukietek himself, who soon after his coronation commissioned it from masters in the Western lands. About 700 years later, Lev Solovey stumbled upon this trace with the help of the community, is rediscovering, recreating, and adapting a game forgotten by history to modern times. I welcome you to my channel. In this recording, I will tell you a little more about the board game Principes. As you can see, the game board is a closed circular map with separate areas of the divided Polish kingdom. Here we have 4 districts, which during the game will be managed by individual players. In addition, on the edge of the map, we have an areas of a total of 6 neighbors with their units, which during the game will harass the players with their destructive invasions controlled through the neighbor cards. And finally, look at the center of the map, where the central lands are located, are neutral areas not assigned to any of 4 districts. You can take control of them without a fight, at least in the beginning of this board game. The Principes board game starts with the player in charge of Polonia Minor. This reflects historical facts. This player gets a Principes token and will be able to determine the direction of the turn in each round of the game and decide the direction of attack of enemy invaders. During setup, note that preparation of the deck of history card looks a little different from other cards. You should, without picking at the obverse, draw 2 cards each from the first, second and third periods. Then, prepare a deck of history cards from them so that the cards of the third period are at the bottom, the second period in the middle and the first period at the top of the stack of cards. And now place the deck of 6 history cards prepared in this way on the designated place in the corner of the board. Each player draws a district board as well as 6 action tokens. In addition, each player has 1 prince miniature, 1 princess miniature, which is something like a political agent in this board game, 3 knights and 6 infantrymen in his pool of district units of the appropriate color. Each player puts his initial units on the map accordingly. Importantly, when playing Principes in a game of 2 or 3 players, additional units of non-playing districts must be deployed. You can play the passive variant when the units of the non-playing district are passive and do not pose a threat but only defend their lands against the other players' incursions, or the active variant, in which case each player adds a combined action tile over his board. In this variant, every time when a player performs a recruitment, movement or build action, can perform the same action on a non-playing area for free. This can therefore trigger additional battles using neutral units controlled by another player. Starting the game, each player takes 1 court card, a neighbor card and a battle card. The set of these 3 cards will consider each player's starting hand. The standard limit of cards in a hand is 6, but you can increase it to 9 if you acquire an appropriate progress tile. In addition, each player draws his deck of prince cards. These represent the currently ruling lords in the districts. The different factions in this board game have different lords with different special abilities, but also different numbers of them for a given period. For example, Polonia Minor has only 3 princes for a whole game and can lose them more easily than the other factions, having 5 lords each. Remember that if any player loses all his princes during the game, he is eliminated from the game and loses. In the setup of the position board, players play their district tokens on a position number 4, 1 district tokens on each of the 3 tracks. The market board is a place to lay out the progress tiles available to all players. So first, to preparation, shuffle each type of tile and place 6 stacks of face-down progress tiles on the designated spaces according to color. Second, uncover 2 top tiles from each type of stack and place them on the empty space below. The progress tiles represent a pool of technological and cultures upgrades that player will be able to collect during the game. By doing so, they will develop actions in their districts on the player board. At the bottom of the market board is a time track. Here, you should place the rand token on the first space of this track. And now, you can start the game. If you want to win at this board game, take a look at the 3 tracks on the position board. First, yellow, is the power track, which you will rise for each city you control. The second, red one, is the track of people's support, and here you will gain a higher position after winning a battle. The last track is a church support track, which you will boost when you build an abbey. During the game, you can rise the levels of all 3 tracks in different ways. If your markers reach the last 10 position of all 3 tracks in this board, you can crown your prince and thus win this board game. The coronation can only be carried out during a convention, and this is organized as a political action. It can also be via event from a corresponding history cards. But if throughout the entire game, 6 rounds, no player succeed in crowning his prince, the game is won the player holding the Principes token. However, you must know that you can also win this board game by eliminating your competitors. If, in the course of the game, all the other players lose their last prince, thus they will drop out of the game. At the beginning of each round, except the first round, move the rand tokens to the next space of the time track. Now, the player holding the Principes token decide the direction of the game by turning the Principes token to the appropriate side. The next step is to reveal the history card and consider its effect. After reading the text at the bottom of the card, we consider it. Then we proceed to announce what events will take place at the end of the current round. This is indicated by the icons in the lower right corner of the history card. In this board game, there are various effects like urbanization or invasion by enemy factions. And what is importantly, these effects apply to all players. In the third step of round, each player secretly plans and selects 3 of his 6 action tokens. He then plays the select tokens face down, with the reverses facing up, on dedicated spaces on his district board. He also puts the unused tokens back face down next to his board. Once all players have planned an action for the round, the next step involves revealing the tokens and considering this action. Actions are revealed one at a time, from left to right. So at the beginning, according to the established order, his first action is unveiled and executed by the players with Principes token. When he finishes considering the action, the second, third and next player will do the same. So when the turn returns to the first player, he will unveil his second action token and execute that action. And this is how the entire round is played out until each player reveals all 3 action tokens. So, how to consider all available actions? Now I will discuss all 6 actions and start with the progress action. This action will allow the player to select a progress tile of any color chosen and available in the market for free. In the progress action, the player can select as many tails as the number of the current period. That is, in the first period, the player can select 1 tails, and in the third period, 3 tails. So after selecting tails, the player places them in the free space on his district board. Remember that tails of a given color must be placed on a space of the same color. In this board game, there are 2 types of progress tails. One works on an action upgrade, meaning that every time you play an action of a certain color, such a tail will provide you with the effect described on it. The other type of tails are tails with passive effects, like increase your hand limit to 9 cards. Next action is the tax action. This is an action that will allow you to take gold from all the lands you control. But remember that this action lowers your position on the people's support track on the position board by 1, because the people don't like to pay taxes. So in order to know how many coins you will collect in this action, you must count all the tax symbols on all the lands you control and draw the appropriate amount of money from the pool. When a prince prepares for battle, he sends out a news and recruits units for his army. So how does this action work? You can summon up the 3 of your units to land with your prince or to land with your capital, which are located off the map. You can summon 2 types of units, knights on horses and foot soldiers. You must pay a cost of 1 gold for each knight. The infantryman recruits action is free. With the next action, movement, you will be able to move all your units on the map. With the movement action, you cannot move only the princess, but I will tell you more about her in a moment. Each unit is assigned movement points. This is a value with a triangle symbol, which indicates the maximum number of lands by which a unit can move. So, horse units can move a maximum of 3 areas. Walking units can move a maximum of 2 lands. A prince is a horse unit, so it moves up to 3 spaces. The movement range of units can be increased by acquiring the appropriate progress tails. What is important? In the case of movement, you can only move units inside the divided Polish kingdom. You cannot move into the areas of your neighbors, but they can move into your lands and attack you. If you have complete your movement on lands where there are no units of another color, immediately such an area comes under your control. If, on the other hand, your units end their movement in an area with units of another color, the battle begins. The system of considering battles in this board game is based on counting sword symbols and shield symbols. Each horse unit deals 2 damage in battle, that is, it has 2 sword symbols. This value simultaneously indicates its life level. If 2 knights meet in the battlefield and there are no other factors affecting the course of this clash, the 2 units will destroy each other. Each foot unit deals 1 damage and 1 damage is enough to defeat it. Shield symbols, for example on played cards or on walls of dice, cancel sword symbols in battle. 1 shield symbol cancels out 1 opponent's sword symbol. Each battle must be dealt with in 5 steps. First, battle cards can be played before the battle. Then, players roll the battle dice. After the dice are rolled, some battle cards, those with the word "after the dice are rolled," can be played and their effects can be used. Now, the initial counting of losses takes place. You add up all the sword symbols of the attacking side and subtract from it all the shield symbols of the defending side. If the attacker has more sword symbols than the defending side has shield symbols, deal damage and turn over the killed units accordingly. Infantry units receives damage first, followed by horse units, and the prince at the very end. If there are no enough attack symbols to defeat a unit, that is, for example, a horse unit receives 1 wound and 2 sword symbols are needed to defeat it, we place a wound token next to such an unit. When losses are allocated to the defending side in this way, the same should be done against the attacking side. Importantly, knocked over units still provide attack symbols. In the next step, both players can play battle cards again, but now only add attack and defense symbols from the corner of these cards, but do not use the effects written on the cards. At the end of the battle consideration, the battle is finally resolved, and the counting of how many units died and how many defended in this clash take place. You can use a battle card in one of 3 ways. First, to use the effect of a card, which is determined by the text description at the bottom of the card. Second, as an additional sword or shield, the symbol shown in the lower left corner of that card. Third, at any time during the game, including outside your turn, you can replace the card by discarding it for 1 gold. After the battle, it's necessary to clean up, that is to remove all overturned units. If on both sides all units have been defeated, the battle is won by the defeating side. If all units of either side were not turned over in the battle is won by the side that turned over more units of the opponent. It does not matter what type of units they are. If one of the fighting players had not lost all his units, he must withdraw the undefeated units to one of the lands he controls adjacent to the battlefield. And what important, for winning the battle, the winner will raise his level of the people's support track. But the player who lost the battle must lower his position on this track by 1. If a result of battle he takes control of any area or cities or buildings are destroyed, the player's positions on the position board must be updated accordingly. In addition, in the deck of battle cards, there are also cards that you can play after the battle and their effects considered. Importantly, new battle cards are drawn 1 by each player after the battle is over, regardless of whenever they won or lost. During the Principes board game, you will also fight neighbors and invaders. Then remember that neighborhooding or invading units do not play battle cards. Both sides roll the dice and add up the results. The direction of movement or withdrawal of neutral units is decided by the players who moved them. Another of the actions in this board game is build. You can expand 1 your strongholds into a city and build 2 buildings. At the beginning of the game, all locations on the map with a crown symbol are strongholds. As a build action, you can upgrade them to cities and gain a higher level of power track. For upgrading a stronghold to a city, you must pay a cost in gold in the amount of as many coins as you see on a token of a located city. After paying the cost, place the corresponding city token, covering the area on the map. In addition to power points, cities will also provide you with a larger collection of gold in a tax action and more shield symbols, 2 defense in battle. As I mentioned, in a build action, you can also build buildings. There are 3 different types of buildings in this board game: castles, tiltrate, and abyss. The cost of building each type of building is 1 gold. building a castle will provide you with an additional 2 defense symbols. After building or taking over tilt right, at the point of people's support on the corresponding track on the position board. But remember that if you lose your tournament fields, you must subtract such a point. When you build an abbey, raise your level on a church support track by 1. In addition, remember that there can be a maximum of 1 city and 1 building on 1 land, no more. The last of the actions is politics. By performing it, you can receive 3 cards of the court and neighbors. You can also take a convention. So if you decide drawing cards, after that, look at them carefully because you must discard 1 of 3 cards by putting it to the bottom of the appropriate deck. The court cards depict internal plotting and all sort of intrigue. Various non-military activities. They can be played in 3 different ways. First, to take advantage to the textural effect visible at the bottom of the card. When you play, the card is specified on the bar above its effect. Secondly, they can be played at any time during the game in order to move 1 position on the support track of a people or the church with your marker. And the last way, such a card can be played to exchange it for 1 gold. Neighbor cards allow players to active and block the attacks of neighborhooding factions. Neighbor cards can be played in the same way as court cards to gain either support points or gold. However, the main effect of neighbor cards allow you, before a political action, to move your neighborhood's units in order to attack another player with those units. For example, this card allows you to move 2 knights and 2 infantry units, all units of a Russian principality. Neighborhood's units during such a move can be freely distributed, so it's possible that it will trigger more than 1 battle. However, a neighbor attack led by the player who played the neighbor card can be blocked by the same card as long as the player who fell victim to the attack has it. The second option to use the policy action is to convene a convention. If all 3 of your district tokens are in the last position, on the last space of each of the 3 tracks, then you coronate your prince. And this means victory for you. Remember that the other players during the game can make it more difficult for you by lowering your position with various effects from the cards, among other things. Finally, here about the princess. In this game, they act as special agent who at the beginning of each period, after the order of the players is determined, are sent on a mission. Each player assigned his princess 1 of 3 different tasks. He can send her to neighbor, can send her to his own capital or to someone else's capital. So sending the princess to your neighbor will ensure you safety for that very neighbor for the entire upcoming period, for 2 runs of the game. When a player decides to send the princess to his own capital, he immediately takes 1 court card or 1 neighbor card. On the other hand, if you decide to send the princess to another player's capital, then the players must immediately discard 1 court card or 1 neighbor card from his hand. Now look at the time track at the bottom of the position board. The crown symbols before the 1st, 2nd and 3rd periods remind you to send the princess on a mission at the beginning of each period. As symbols at the end of 1st and 2nd periods, there is a need to change prince. So when the 1st period is over or prince of the 1st period die, they cards players put under the bottom of their prince deck. In their place, each player chooses a prince from the 2nd period. When the second period ends, the prince of the final third period arrive. Importantly, after changing prince, players can move their prince miniature on the map to any land they control. Remember that if your prince dies in battle, you lost his miniature, you can choose a card of another prince from your current period. If you do not have such a prince in your deck, the prince from the next period takes over. If there are no more prince cards in your deck of prince cards, I have bad news. You lost the game and are out of the game. In such a situation, all your units remaining on the map are treated by other players as neutral units. In addition, the round after, the one in which one of the players dropped out the game, becomes the final round, the last round for all players remaining in the game. Finally, I will add that you can play the Principes board game as an optional variant. If you do not want to be eliminated after losing the last prince, you can continue to play without the card and without the prince miniature. Of course, if the other players also agree to this. And now, thank you very much for your attention and watching my video. If you are interested in this board game, you can join the group supporting this project. I will leave you a link to the campaign in the description below. I hope my explanation of the Principes board game rules has shown you what this board game has to offer you. So please leave a like if you enjoy it. I invite you to come back in the future for more material like this, and do not forget to turn on your subscription. Thank you very much and see you in next video. Bye!